Hi, I'm CJ Horton, and I'd like to tell you how I become a fan of Elvis Presley, my love for Elvis, my tribute, my story. I became an Elvis fan when I was just 4 years old. My father was watching the concert Aloha from Hawaii from 1973 via satellite. I didn't have a clue who he was at the time or anything. I remember my father just being chilled out on the sofa, and I was gonna go play with my toys, and I remember him saying, "Come on, out of the way, out of the way, out of the way, out of the way of the TV." As I turned, there was just a guy talking, so I didn't think nothing of it. And then the music started, and he began to sing. And I remember looking at the TV, and I don't know what it was. There was a feeling that came over me, and to this day I still can't explain it. I was just completely hooked. So I sat next to my father and I watched the remainder of the concert. In between songs, I would ask my dad about him, who he was, and my dad would tell me everything I wanted to know. I do remember him saying to me, "I can't talk too much, I'd like to enjoy the rest of the concert, so sorry Dad if I disturbed you, but there we go." um, I was just amazed by how one guy could get so much of a reaction from other people. I was amazed by his voice and all these different feelings. It was just, I was just blown away. By the end of the concert, my father then said I could rewind the tape and watch it from the beginning because there were songs obviously I missed. Because the song was "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry." That was the first song I heard, and that was the first time I'd seen him. I've spoken with many fans over the years, and they've said, my favorite song is this song, or the first time I heard Elvis was this time and that time. For me, I can say the first time I heard him was the first time I saw him. And later that day, after the concert, my father showed me all of his record collection. He would play the records for me. I would point at the record, he'd take it out and he'd put it aside, and he would put them on, and I would just be fascinated by all the different styles of music. There was gospel, there was country, but I wasn't listening to songs like Heartbreak Hotel or Blue Suede Shoes. I was listening to songs such as Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain and Where Do I Go From Here, all the 70s stuff. It just so happens that's what I picked, along with some soundtracks. As the weeks went on, it was clear that I was getting more and more into Elvis. Always wanting my dad to play the records, always wanting to ask questions, watch the movies. Because during that period, my father showed me all the videos, showed me the movies. Didn't quite get some of them, mind, especially at first when he was having different names. I said, "Dad, I thought you told me his name was Elvis. But on you, they're calling him Chad Gates, or they're calling him, Lonnie Beale." And my father then explained to me about movies. And I just loved the songs. I loved it when Elvis got into a fight. I just thought he was cool. One thing I always loved about him was his hairstyle. Loved his hairstyle. So I was getting more and more into him and just wanting my dad's records, and you wouldn't let me touch them. I can understand why now. It was during that year, my mother and father got me my very first turntable, and at the time I was like, "Thank you, Santa." With the turntable, I had a few Elvis records. I learned later on that they were my father's records that he had spare, and I would just wear them out constantly, listening to them every single day, every single moment. It was, it was a way of me just, "Bye bye everybody, I'm in my element," and I would start to learn to sing his songs. I would pick out words and verses and break everything down and just learn the songs that way. The best way of learning a song, I guess, is listening to it all the time, constantly, right? So that's kind of what I used to do. It'd be set up in my bedroom, and I would just be there, and I would just sing all day. With me singing constantly at home, this led to me singing in school. I would go into school, get my mark, listen to the teacher, do my work. But due to me being also a little bit shy, I would be out in the playground and I would try to make friends, but I found it really difficult. So I would find myself a corner or maybe a bench that they have in the yard and just sit down there, or I would sit on the banking and I would just sing, just sing. I would start off quietly, and as it went on, I'd get just a little bit louder. Not so loud so I was shouting or anything like that, but just as you do basically. And I would be thinking about maybe what I would go home and listen to, what album I would listen to, next. So Elvis's music was constantly on my mind. This also led with me singing to some of the children not really understanding. You see, Elvis wasn't the current music of the charts at the time, and some children found it weird that I was a young kid just like everybody else, and I wasn't singing Michael Jackson or somebody else who was around at that period. I was singing somebody who was like from the 50s. And I think the song choices was a little different too. I mean, nobody really ever heard of Double Trouble or Rock-a-Hula Baby. And I was singing songs from the 70s, songs that I heard that I really enjoyed at that point. And this is where children started to tease me by calling me names, by calling me old-fashioned, by taking the mickey with singing songs back to me. And at first, I actually thought that was quite cool. I thought, oh, so you do know that then. But, I wasn't really singing Hound Dog or Heartbreak Hotel or Blue Suede Shoes. And when they'd come past me and they would go, you ain't nothing but a hound dog, I thought, oh, cool, you know it. But I later found out that they were really taking the mickey. And it really, really upset me, really hurt me. It made it more difficult for me to try and make friends, but I didn't see what I was doing wrong just by singing Elvis's songs. And I didn't quite understand. And I guess maybe a part of me, there's still a part of me that still don't. I mean, music is universal. And if you think about the way Elvis is today, I mean, oh. But I can partly understand. But because I wasn't doing anything wrong, I didn't stop. Whatever was going on at home and whatever was going on at school, Elvis was always there to make me feel happy. Because when I'd come home from school, I'd go up to my room, I'd put on a record, and the sadness that I felt during the daytime with being in school would just go. It would just disappear. So Elvis would get me through those dark moments in my life growing up. One of the times I remember at primary school is my father picking me up. He said that we were going somewhere, but he didn't tell me where. But when we got to the bus stop, which was across the road from the school, I knew right away that we were going to Bargoed, but I didn't know what for. When we got there, we got off the bus and we walked right across the road and into the record store that was right opposite the bus stop. Or bus station, as you want to call it. My father asked me to pick what I wanted, and at the counter they just had an Elvis release, which was the all-time greatest hits, or should I say Presley, the all-time greatest hits. It was on double cassette, double CD, and a double vinyl. Why I picked it, I don't know, but I picked the double cassette. I was completely thrilled to bits, and it was just very unexpected. I'd seen it advertised a couple of days earlier, and I remember saying just how much I would love to have it. So that was a really cool moment for me. The funny story about that part is when we got onto the bus, we got onto the very same bus that we'd caught up. I remember the driver saying, That was quick. And we got home and I wore the tape out. And I think what I really loved about that particular day was not only did I get this album, but my father and myself, we spent the whole evening listening to it together. And I would continue to sing along, and my father would even sing along with me. We had it was a really good evening. I really really enjoyed it, and we had many nights like that. Um, from from there, as time went on, I started to really indulge into researching Elvis. I wanted to know more about him as an artist, as a person. So I would watch more documentaries, and although I struggled to read at the time, I would pick out little words. My mum would also help me with some of the words, and I would focus a lot on the pictures because I always found it interesting to see the different jumpsuits that Elvis had. At the time, I didn't really understand what the jumpsuits were all about. So, looking through the books and watching the documentaries and listening to those who were there around him throughout his career and throughout his life, just listening to all the different stories, I was just, really fascinated because for me, it was something I really can't explain. All I can say is that I was just hooked on, making sure that, you know, everything I learned was something different. And you'd put on one documentary and you'd have one story, you'd put on another documentary, you'd have the same story, but something was always added. It was like they were told almost in two different ways, but I guess with anything, there's always little bits of information added on that's not in the other documentary. Like I found out about a situation where Elvis was coming back from Hawaii and he did something very spontaneous. And very generous too. And they just done a show in Hawaii, and on the way back, this kid was on the plane looking at this ring that Elvis had on, and he said, Mr. Presley, someday I'm going to be able to afford a ring like that. Elvis just went, you don't have to wait any longer. He took his ring off and gave it to the kid, And Joe Esposito is the guy who told that story. And that's not really been repeated in any of the other documentaries. And it hasn't been put in any of the books either, to my knowledge. And I have quite an extensive collection. And just bits and pieces like that, growing up and as a kid, watching those documentaries and finding things out for the first time just truly blew me away. And I would then the more I watched him, the more I thought, how cool is this guy? I wish I was him. And I wanted to be him. As a kid, I wanted to be him, So I would start to mimic him. I would start to sort of watch how he moved, watch how he stood, just basically check out his stance. If he sort of like hold a microphone in a certain way, I would be really focused on how he did things. Our video player at the time was quite old, and you could, when you paused it, you wouldn't get no lines on the screen. It would just be complete still. So it was very easy to focus on his positions, and when you pressed the forward button, it would go very slowly. So you'd be able to capture the each moment, each frame, each position. So I used to do that a lot and begin to learn how, if he moved his arm at a certain point, if he was singing a song and a drum beat come on, how would he sort of move his arm or move his leg or tilt his head or even turn his eyes? I would be very focused on completely mimicking everything that he did, everything in detail. Which led to me kind of getting to realize how expensive it was too. You see, my mother bought me my first guitar, and I saw the movie Jailhouse Rock. And there's a scene in that movie where he jumps down off the stage onto the bar, onto the floor, and this guy was laughing at him, and he just goes, well, he laughs back at him. Elvis goes, and smashes the guitar over the table. Well, I I couldn't help it. I mimicked him by doing the same thing. I jumped up on a chair though. I didn't jump up on the table. I jumped onto a chair, jumped down, and smashed my guitar over the chair. My mother was like, "No, what are you doing?" I was like, "Well, he did it." So yeah, I went through a few guitars. I think maybe that's why when there were times when I'd ask for a guitar, my mother would make me one out of cardboard. Only the difference was they were a little bit bigger than your average size guitar. They were huge. So, um, with mimicking come also the time I fell in love with this microphone. Elvis had a great microphone called the RE15, and I used to love it. And I thought, oh, I really wish I could have one of them. Now, my mum had these non-sharp knives. They were just your plain old long silver, and they were all silver. They were silver with a little pattern on them. So I used to get those knives, and I'd watch Elvis. That's the way it is. And I used to pretend that those knives were that microphone. Like I said, it wasn't sharp whatsoever. And yeah, I used to really just mimic him. I used to. The only thing I couldn't grasp was the rings. Yeah, he had some great rings. And when I was young, I remember saying to my mum and dad I wanted, to get Elvis's rings. You can't get Elvis's rings, but I used to have obviously toy rings. So I remember them being on certain fingers. That's another thing with researching. I used to look at what fingers Elvis had his rings on in which particular performance or which concert, and I used to put my rings on the same fingers. I used to do everything by detail. Now there was a period where Elvis had on the end of the silver microphone. I'm gonna say the silver microphone because that's what I used to say when I was just a kid. Used to have a black ball, as I used to call it. It's called a windshield. But obviously when I was a kid I said, "Mum, he's got a black ball on the end of his microphone." So I used to get like, I don't know, an old sponge, if I saw like a round sponge somewhere, or if, hell, I even got a soft yellow ball at one point, this soft like toy ball you'd throw for the dog, and I'd colour it black. I would just colour it with felt tip black, and I would stick it on the end of the knife and say, "I've got one." And I used to love it, and the Aloha concert, well, I always wondered what these things were around his neck. So I used to get the Christmas, when it came to a Christmas time, I remember the tinsel. So I used to get the different bits of tinsel, and I would make them. I would cut them, and I would make, cut them and tie them and make my own Aloha. At the time I didn't know what they were called, but I just used to call them Aloha round neck things, I think it was. And I remember having a gold one. I remember having a red and black one, or it was red with like little bits of black in it. I had a purple one. I had a green one. So I used to do that. My mother and father they were like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I go, "Oh, I want the same." So I used to do things like that. I couldn't stop studying. The more it happened, the more I witnessed things, such as the way Elvis, walked on stage, the way he walked up to the microphone. One thing I do remember very specifically is outside on the side of our house we had a coal bunker. Right next door to that, built onto ours, was next door's, which was higher again. So I used to get onto ours and get onto next door's, and there was this long metal silver chrome pipe, and I bent the top part And with the guitar that I had at the time, it was a little black guitar with buttons on it, made different sounds. Obviously, I didn't care about those, but I remember watching the 68 special and Elvis, grabbing the microphone stand and breaking it. Well, since my baby left me, and leaning back and everything. So what I used to do with that silver pipe was that used to be my microphone for that part, and I used to mimic that. I used to stand on next to his coal bunker, and I used to now I didn't have a mic stand, not a proper one. So the bucket that I had, bucket and spade to take to the beach, I used to fill it up with sand or mud at that particular point from the garden, and I used to put this metal pole inside there, and that was my mic stand. So yeah, little things like that would always be to go along with the detail, or try to get as close. Like I said, I was a kid. I wanted to be him, so he was just pretty cool. Cool, fun times, silly times too. Although growing up, having some fun times through studying Elvis, researching Elvis, listening to the music, this also led to some darker times as I grew older through secondary school. The bullying intensified quite a lot. I would get called more names, I'd get hit, beaten up, and so forth. And although my mother and father did everything they could, and the school did everything they could, it never really stopped. It continued and continued. I found myself feeling quite alone at this point, and I still didn't see through everything that was going on. It was only because I loved Elvis. So I always felt that, why? Because I'm not hurting you, I'm not doing any harm to you, so why are you treating me like this? I did things from going to cutting my hair, because growing up, from when I first got into Elvis, like I said, I loved his hair, so I would always try to do my hair like Elvis, and there was a period when I was in secondary school, I actually shaved all of my hair off, literally all of my hair off. I did leave a rat's tail, mind, at the back of my hair, but that I was told to cut that off by the school teachers, so I cut that off. But it didn't stop. Nothing I really did ever stopped the bullying for me being into Elvis, and I found that very cruel. And yeah, there were moments that I just wish that I could just leave school. I could just run away, not be around anyone. And I realised after that part of my secondary school of shaving all my hair off that nothing's going to make a difference. But yet, why should I change who I am, and why should I stop listening to Elvis? I mean, I got into other music during that period as well. I got into Motley Crue, which is a heavy rock metal band, and they're still my favourite band to this day. I got into Meatloaf and become a big fan of Meatloaf, and again, I'm still a massive fan to this day. So I get into various different types of music: Guns N' Roses, Bon Jovi, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It was 80s rock, but it was still pretty current at that point as well, especially Meatloaf. So again, didn't matter what I did, nothing ever changed. So I thought, I ain't changing for nobody, and I'm not going to try again either. I'm going to keep my hair in the style like Elvis is, because that's how I like it. I was seeing kids and other people my age with their hair being spiked, dyed different colours, in all shapes and sizes. And I figure, well, I'm no different to anyone else. I stand out in the crowd just as well as anyone else did at that point. So I put my hair back and I continued. It was during that period that I made friends with a teacher. A teacher noticed what was sort of happening, and as I said, every teacher in the school did the best they could. Um, but when I would be sat in the yard on my own, or I would, be on the door duty or something, there was one teacher, it was my history teacher, Mr. Oliver. That was his name. And he could see that what was going on, and he kind of took to me, and I took to him. Not only was history my favorite lesson, but it was even cooler when I found out that Mr. Oliver was going to be my history teacher. I was like, yes, come on! And the more that we spoke, and the more that he could see, he believed in me, and that that sort of changed things for me a little bit, I guess, because he was one of the only people who believed in me. And he would get me at the end of the class, or at the end of the lesson, should I say, he would ask me to get up and perform. So now, bearing in mind, I was already getting, bullied throughout the school. So I'm guessing you may be thinking, well, if I'm getting bullied for singing, why would he get me up in class? Well, he knew by that point that I didn't care, that no matter what anybody said to me, there was no way I was going to change. And there's an old saying, if you can't beat them, join them. But there's also an old saying that if you think that you can beat them, go for it. And I went for it. So I'd get up and I would sing. Sometimes I would even sing Shakin' Stevens. It wouldn't even be Elvis. And those who were in my class, where I say that I didn't have friends, I had friends I could talk to and what have you. But when it came to the bullying, there was only very few people that that would help. But and I'm truly appreciative of those people as well. Um, Obviously, I haven't seen a lot of them since I left school. Um, but if any of you out there watching this, then thank you. Um, so I would sing at the end of each lesson, especially when the song became a little bit of a repeat when Mr. Oliver brought in a cassette tape called A Legend Lives On, and there was a song called A Measure of the Blues, and he said he always, he really likes that song, and he played it all the time. In the end, he gave me the tape, and I still have it in my keepsake box, and I would sing that song at the end of class. There was an assembly that I sang a song, and it was a difficult time and a good time all at once. But the bullying really did do a number on me. It did knock my confidence a lot. I struggled harder to make friends. I struggled harder to believe in myself. Even though Mr. Oliver believed in me, I didn't believe in myself at all. Why I kept going and carried on, I can't answer that. All I know is that I would go home from school and sometimes I would be in absolute tears. I would go to my room and I would put Elvis on, and I don't know. It was like it was as if he was a guardian angel, just watching over me, saying, "You hang in there, kid. You'll be okay." It was a tough time. So many things would happen that I felt that I just felt that Elvis really saved me, because I got to a point where I just didn't feel I could go on anymore. So he was always there. Whether there was things happening in school, or whether things were happening outside of school and at home. With just one flick of a switch, he was either on the screen or he was coming out of the speakers. Even in early adulthood, you know, going through all my dark times, Elvis would always be there to pull me out of it. Even when I went through some traumatizing events and had a breakdown, Elvis was right there. You know, he gave me the strength to pull through. Then in May of 2009, I met someone who was a right, pain in the backside. But I wouldn't. Nah, I'm just kidding. I met someone in 2009 who I just absolutely fell in love with. I don't really believe in love at first sight, but the moment we saw each other, I just knew that we were for life, and she was going to be my wife, and we're married to this very day. My wife Kelly heard a cassette of me back then. I put a tape on with me singing. I was quite nervous. It was kind of almost an accident. I was looking for one tape and put on another, and she heard me singing, and I basically told her what I love doing and everything, and she said to me, "Well, why don't you go out there and do it?" And I was like, "Nah, who's gonna want to listen to me? It's it's gone, it's dusted. I can't really pick up on it. I mean, I'd already done singing for the few years previous anyway, and so forth. But I just didn't think it would ever be something I'd get into, and I didn't think nobody would really believe in me at that point. But thanks to the help with Kelly and her brother, I was able to get my own equipment and start singing again. And it was quite nerve wracking as well because of how my life had been. A part of me didn't really know how to say thank you because I was shy and nervous. But I started singing songs, not really by Elvis, but by Shakin' Stevens and all the artists of the 50s. So it came then to do my first gig, and well, it was, besides myself, it was my wife, my dad, my best friend Wayne, and well, that was it to begin with. Because when we got to the venue, I'd later found out that it wasn't well advertised. There was no posters of me up outside or anything like that, or inside really. Further people came in, so altogether there were 6 altogether by the time it started. That's including my wife, my dad, and my best friend. And I thought, oh my god, what am I gonna do now? There's only, but it didn't faze me. I thought, all right, I'll treat it as a rehearsal, but still remain professional. And I opened up at the Bop Won't Stop. I'll remember that much, because although I did, all the artists of the 50s and the 60s, it was mainly based on Shakin' Stevens. My movements was based on Shaky, going up on the tiptoes, jumping up in the air, landing on the side of my feet, and spinning the microphone around and everything. I mean, back then I was a little bit more trimmer than what I am now, so I was able to move a lot. By the time I started coming to the end of the first part of the show, a few more people came in, and by the time I started the second half and finished the actual show, there were a few more in again. Still not many though, but more than to begin with. And I remember thinking, that's it. I don't think I can do this again. That's it, And it wasn't until afterwards like I said, that I found that the venue hadn't had any entertainment for quite some time, and it wasn't well advertised. So I was that was basically the start of me gigging, and that's kind of what I did at the start. Following on from my first gig, I did a mixed rock and roll show for a number of years, and one day I met somebody named Darren Graceland Jones, and he'd asked me about becoming an Elvis tribute artist, ETA. From the word go, I said no. The reason why I didn't want to be an ETA was because of all the years that I had to go through, all the bullying and the difficult times. Elvis sort of kind of that was my sort of thing. I was just a fan who loved his music, and I guess I just didn't want to go down that road. I wasn't ready to then, should we say. So he put me in touch with a couple of guys who was looking for a lead singer of the band. This band was the Pontiacs. So I went up to do an audition, and it went well. There were little glitches here and there, and it didn't quite work out. So from there, I was speaking to Darren again, and he said about me maybe being an ETA again. He said that I had a natural Elvis tone to my voice, and this is a little funny story on that one. I didn't have a clue what he meant. I really didn't. It took me a number of years to realise what tone meant vocally when someone says you got like a natural tone to someone. It took me quite a few years to really realise what that was. But so he asked me to if I wanted to again, and I thought let's give it a go. And when he was talking to me about how it is being an ET and so forth, I thought, well, yeah, maybe it is my time. So the only thing available at that moment in time was a competition called the Best Welsh Competition in Port Paul. So now, I'm not really one for competitions. Never have been, never thought of them, never been interested in them whatsoever. Don't really like them. Nothing against competitions, and I got nothing against anybody who went to the competitions. In fact, I wish them all the best. But for me, it's just like black pudding. I don't like black pudding, so I'm not going to eat it. So I don't like competitions, so I'm not going to enter them. It's just the same difference. But I entered this one because it was a way of me getting some exposure. Excuse me. Getting some exposure and, getting my name out there, really, because I'd never really done anything involving being an Elvis tribute before. Other than just, singing, from growing up. And, well, to say I never done any singing, I did do some singing, but I was never like a full-on Elvis tribute. So I had nothing regarding clothes or stage wear or anything like that. I did have, however, a Yamaha guitar, which I sold in order to get a replica of Elvis's Black Dove. So I done that. Shirt wise, don't really have anything, but I did get myself a black Aloha belt. So that's all I had. Got there, went on, Darren told me all about it, beforehand. So I went on, I did a couple of songs. In one sense, I guess you could say the rest is history, but there's a lot of history within that time period afterwards. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that moment, and I felt the buzz, and I really realised what a few people had told me, a few people that I met when I was there. I felt myself being more natural to myself, I guess, and After that, we'd spoke, and Darren had helped me out with my first jumpsuit. Within that time, I had, thought about how I wanted to do things, and I wasn't like fully wasn't sure. So after he gave me the jumpsuit and I put it on, I felt different. You feel like Superman when you put on a jumpsuit. You really do. And I was part of a charity event that his parents used to host at their pub, and it was fantastic. By that time, or by the time he'd given me my first jumpsuit, and the time I did this particular charity event, I'd gotten hold of an RE50 microphone, and I thought, well, could I use this as well? um, so yeah, sure, bring it up and just be relaxed and just be yourself and enjoy yourself, have fun. And oh boy, did I have fun doing the songs that I loved. I met loads of other Elvis fans. I met more ETAs, and it was just a great time, and I felt amazing. And afterwards, when I came home, I was like, yeah, I really do love performing Elvis's music, because when you're singing songs that people might not expect you to sing. Like I remember doing the song "It's Easy for You" from Elvis's last album, Moody Blue, and I remember looking around and I remember seeing the reaction to some of the people that were there and some of the faces, and I it's like a warm feeling inside that I couldn't get out of my system, and that I held on to that, still do. So after that, then it was like, okay, I know now that I'm going to go down this route in a more fuller way, or more permanent way, if you want to call it. So I began to think, well, how can I do this? How can I sort of perform the tribute? How do I think about songs and everything like that? So I started looking at other tributes and looking at how they did it. And I remember thinking to myself, I didn't want to be an impersonator. Nothing against impersonators whatsoever. It's just everybody does their tribute differently, and because we're all different, we all bring something different to the table, you know. So I thought, well, I want to do it, and I want to feel comfortable at the same time. So after looking around at other tributes, I started going back to my Elvis books and watching Elvis a lot. And then something dawned on me. In different parts of the world, I would see somebody perform a tribute to Aloha from Hawaii or the 6-day comeback special. And I'm thinking, but that's like one show. How can you fit in elements of all of Elvis's career within one show? And then I thought, okay, well, there's obviously an audience out there that goes to authentic shows and theme shows. I thought the only way to do that, you got to see an authentic show, you've got to go to an arena or a theatre or a hall or something like that. So that's when I began the process of still doing different shows, trying different techniques, such as doing working myself from the 50s right up to the 70s. I tried different things that some worked and some didn't. So I guess I was finding my feet and learning my craft as an ETA, I guess. And I began thinking to myself, okay, here's where I've got to figure out how I want to do the show itself. So with talking to other fans, talking to other ETAs, I began planning it, and I would write things down on pads and write ideas down. And then one of the things was then the name of the show, because I didn't want it to be as I said, I didn't want to be an impersonator. I didn't want to just say it's an Elvis tribute. I wanted it to mean something from myself. So, think about names, and because whenever names would come up, the word personal, I always said, look, it's personally from me. I want to do it. It's from my heart. Which led to the title, A Personal Tribute to Elvis Presley. So we got the title, and I've looked at all my ideas and looked at all like songs and different sections that I would write down, and that's the idea came up. The idea came up then for the theme show. So one part themed, and the other part sort of like more relaxed and just more fun than, if you want to call it. Even though the whole show is fun. But then, instead of just doing the 70s, I'd done it for a couple of years with doing the 70s first, and then the 50s and the 60s, and the movie years afterwards. And that I got that advice, actually, again from Darren. And then I started to, I went back to these themes thinking, I want to do something different that's not being done. But I wanted to put my own stamp on it at the same time. So I thought, if I'm going to do the first part theme, how can I with song choices? Because in Elvis's concerts, he did all like some of the hits like Heartbreak Hotel, Blue Suede Shoes. He did those in those eras. So how would I incorporate them into the 50s? Because the different versions, you see. And then it just, I don't know what it was, but it just came to me. So every first part is themed to something that Elvis did within his career. And then I started looking at other avenues with it, and how could I do those themes. So, for instance, example, the one show that I put together was a personal tribute, CJ Horton, a personal tribute to Elvis Memories of 68, or the it's called 68 Comeback Memories. And that's obviously what the title says. It's bringing back some of those songs and that he performed within the 68 comeback. But again, there's different sections of that show. So how would I do it? I don't have the leathers that he wore, the leather suit. I did have the leather jacket at one point, and I used to wear it with tight black jeans. Because of my weight, I now don't do that. I do it with fully relaxed, and it's nice black shirt, red necktie, black trousers, and I have the red guitar replica, and I started off with that and do it with Heartbreak Hotel. And I started thinking about the songs he did within the special, and the songs that was recorded around that time period, such as Too Much Monkey Business, and songs like that I put them in between the songs that he did for the special and songs that he rehearsed that he was going to do in the special but didn't. So from that show, that was the first one that I actually ever put together, because the way I saw it is, let's start from the beginning. But because I didn't want to do the 50s, I had to start from that point. I thought it was a great starting point. And then I would look at the songs then that he recorded throughout the 50s and the 60s, and also look at the movies, what were popular, what was not popular, and mix the whole lot up. I wanted to give each audience in each show a little bit of everything that Elvis did throughout his career. Whether it be country, rock and roll, rhythm and blues, gospel. I wanted to bring it all together. So looking at all the songs, I'm trying to think what fitted where, what versions. And I thought, well, if I can do that with this one, I can do it with that one, I can do it with another one. So from there became the Elvis Vegas 69. And then it was CJ Horton, a personal tribute to Elvis, that's the way it is. Then came Elvis on Tour. Now for that one, again, it was slightly difficult because at first I had the Aloha jumpsuit. I've had a few jumpsuits in my time. but I'm not a fan of wearing them. So all of my theme shows are with something that Elvis wore or themed to that particular theme show that I'm doing. And the only jumpsuit I do have is the fringe suit. If I can get away though without wearing it, then I'll get away with it if I can. So after doing all the first sort of like themes, I started thinking about the second sort of part and how would I introduce it. I just don't want to turn around and say 50s, 60s, and movies. So then it became, well, the Rockin' 50s. Now that title I got inspiration from an Elvis album called The Rocker, which is a pretty cool album. And then I thought, yeah, the Rockin' 50s. In the 60s, you had the movies, and you had the bopping songs like Western Union, where people could bop to it. So people could really like dance more, you know. So the dancing 60s, and then the movie years, because there's an element of Elvis's hits that are non-movie songs, and a different element for Elvis's movie songs, including some of the hits like Wooden Heart from the movie Jet Blues. So I had to work at every little section. Then I started thinking about the songs that people may not know, because I'm doing this in pubs and clubs, you see, and as it stands, I'm the only ETA in South Wales that does it in pubs and clubs and do the shows themed in the one part. So I'm thinking a lot about the songs that Elvis probably, you wouldn't expect to hear, such as the song I'm Leaving. It's not a popular hit. It wasn't a hit single. It's not one that you hear often. So songs like that I will incorporate within the show, and I will do those type of songs between something that's popular, like say Johnny Be Good. Then I would do I'm Leaving, and then I would do say A Big Hunk of Love, something something that's known. And I noticed at first that there were many people say to me, "Well, I didn't know Elvis did that. Is that really an Elvis song?" So I thought, okay, let's incorporate then a little bit of knowledge into my show. So I would then start telling people, telling my audiences, should I say, what the name of the song is, what album it's from, what year it was recorded. I wouldn't give too much because obviously you don't want to bore the audience. So little details like that, short and sweet, simple, go straight into the song. And because the only people who are going to know those particular songs are big Elvis fans who've got everything that Elvis has done, So I had that then in the bag. I had everything all mapped out, and that is the way that I do my tribute, and I've enjoyed it ever since. Throughout my ETA career so far, there's a lot of things I'm really proud of, such as when I perform at the Elvis Festival every year. On the Sunday, there's a gospel service at the Holy Trinity Church, and I perform there with my good friend Wayne Roberts, who is also an inspiration to me as well. And that's a chance for me to sort of sit down and listen to Win, and get really intrigued with the service and perform. And when you're singing Elvis's gospel songs, you get a whole different feeling about everything. It's very different than when you're singing the other songs that Elvis recorded, and I really enjoy that. That's kind of the highlight of the festival for me, and I've done that now for many years. And everybody who comes, they always enjoy it. And through doing what I do, I do a lot of private parties, weddings, and so forth. And there was one time I did a show for a lady who was a real Elvis fan, and I even went to her home to do it, and she gave me a little prize as well. She gave me a little present, which I still have. That really means a lot to me. Going into 2020, obviously we had COVID and everything was restricted, so all performing stopped and public events stopped and so forth. But I was fortunate enough during 2020 to be involved with a project done by Caerphilly Borough Council, which was, well, there was somebody involved who I well already spoke about. He's a complete, yeah. I'm just kidding. His name is Mr. Oliver. You see, after I finished school, we always remained friends because of everything he helped me through, and he contacted me and asked me if I would be interested in doing this project. And I said, yeah, that sounds amazing. It was a virtual reality project, I guess you could say. It was being filmed, performing as Elvis, and it was filmed in virtual reality, and it was taken around all care homes and nursing homes, due to the fact that people couldn't have visitors, and they were struggling. It was a very difficult time. I mean, if it was a difficult time for us, I can only imagine what it was like for people who were in care homes. And so I went and performed, and it was filmed, and it was taken around, and it got a really good response. And in fact, I really felt like afterwards, when I realised the response it had, I felt really proud of being able to help others, and I was hearing how well it was doing, and I was extremely proud of that. This led on to a tour, sorry I couldn't pronounce that word then, throughout South Wales, going to care homes and performing for the residents directly. To begin with, they were inside the buildings, and I was outside performing through the windows, really, and sort of sometimes they would open the doors. As time went on and restrictions started to get a little better, it moved on to the residents coming out of the care homes. And I remember one I went to, I've got a funny story to tell you. I went to one of them, and people sometimes get asked for autographs and so forth. Well, this one lady, God love her, she said, well, I think we should have some of his hair. When they found out that I was finished, she asked if she could have some of my hair to remember me by. It was quite, you can imagine my face at the time, because seeing the appreciation that everybody to have, you never know what to expect, because every one of them is different. And there is one thing which I will come to in a second that ain't different. But she asked me if she could have some of my hair. I took it as a joke. I really didn't think this lady was being serious, and I was laughing with Mr. Oliver. And next thing I knew, a scissors was brought out, and Mr. Oliver actually took some of my hair and snipped it. I had to put it into an envelope, and I had to sign it to her. But that we couldn't stop laughing about it, and I mean that in a good way as well. It's one of those moments where you'll never forget it. There was then another time, one of the last ones I did, when as the restrictions was being lifted. It was opposite a church in Caerphilly, and everybody was out dancing, and I obviously had to keep a distance still, but they were outside, they was able to dance, they were able to enjoy the weather. It was great. We even had a dog walker that was passing by, and he stood there and he listened and he started dancing. So some of the residents then got up and they started dancing. A funny story about that part, there was a police officer coming on the road, and one of the residents at the back, I was already in mid-song, and as I looked and I saw the police officer, I thought of the song Jailhouse Rock in my head, thinking I'll do that as the next song. I'm coming to the end of this one now, so... And after I finished, one of the residents shouted over and asking, could I do that song? And I said, yep, I already clocked the police officer. I'm going to do Jailhouse Rock next. Bear in mind this was over the microphone, so I wondered if the police officer heard me say that. But it's moments like that that you'll never forget. And what really gripped me about everything through that period was seeing the joy that it was bringing people. And it was this project was something I did. It was my, I guess it was my way of giving something back to the people, because you know the way you look at it is some of those people have lived through some stuff, and the ages vary, and when you look into the eyes of people who are enjoying it and they're appreciating it, and it's those it's moments like you're gonna never forget, and you really do realize just why you were doing this is to bring happiness to others. And if that's through the music of Elvis Presley, if that's to anything, if you're bringing happiness to others, then you must be doing something great in life, I guess. Some of the other highlights that I'd like to mention is during that time period with lockdown and COVID, with doing the care homes, this led to me being asked by a good friend of mine named Juan Lozano, who phoned me up and said about a project they were doing in Porthcawl, where they were doing a Christmas special that was being filmed, and that was being taken around and broadcast throughout all the care homes as well. And I really enjoyed being a part of that. It's some great fun doing that as well. In fact, for that one, I actually provided all the backing tracks. It was great fun, really great fun. I'm proud of being part of that. Also as well, another one of my highlights would be I've got so many, so many. So please forgive me for jotting back and forth. I performed at the Senedd building, I think they pronounce it as, which is the Welsh Government building in Cardiff. That was a great show, and I had all dancers as well, all Las Vegas dancers, which was pretty cool. The first time performing with the band, another highlight for me at the Grand Pavilion Theatre in Porthcawl. I was part of the movie show there, and I went on performing with the band, and it's great because obviously a band, they follow you. I remember being nervous before I went on, saying, "How would I know when to come in? How am I going to hear a drum lick?" And they were like, "They'll follow you. Don't worry about it." So yeah, that was a great highlight for me. And the other one would be, I guess, the other highlight in recent years. I was part of two shows at the Neon. It's like a theatre music venue that they do big shows there. Lots of big stars have performed there. Peter Andre, to name but a few, he's performed there. And I remember going there myself to seeing shows. So when you're there watching a show, and then the next thing you're on the same stage performing yourself, it's a very far out kind of feeling. And I did an Easter. I think it was just after Easter I did one, and then I did a Christmas one. It was really really amazing being with the band again. And every year at the festival, funny enough, I play with the band, and and there's no greater feeling than that, really. When you got a band backing you up, it's absolutely fantastic. Throughout my career as being an ETA, I have met so many amazing people. I have done so many amazing things, and I'm truly grateful to have had and get those opportunities, and meeting the fans who I've even become friends with, and fans who I see every year, fans who I see at my shows, people who come to my shows that I see on a regular basis all the time, and you never expect it, but when it happens, you just can't describe the feeling. And for me personally, knowing that I'm bringing people happiness in many different ways through my Elvis tribute, I will always be proud of that, and I'm going to continue to perform my tribute and make people happy. Even to now, in the present day, Elvis continues to be there for me and pull me through my darkest times. Included in 2020, I went through some very personal dark times, which was non-COVID related. Elvis was there 100% of the way. But there was someone else there as well. That was my family. That was my wife, Kelly. She was my rock throughout every situation that was taking place. And I couldn't have done it without her. And sometimes going through things, you realise who was there for you, and and Elvis was there, and my wife was there, and my kids. Throughout my life, I have got so many special memories, but I'd like to share with you a few special memories that involves Elvis Presley. I'd like to start off with, you may have heard earlier on about the time my father picked me up from school, and I didn't know where we were going, and we were going to a record shop, and I picked the album Presley, the All-Time Greatest Hits. And this is the album. This is not exactly the same. I picked the double cassette. This is double CD. But I wore the cassette out. Obviously, in later years, and as a collector, I've recollected it on CD. For anyone who doesn't have this, highly recommend it. This is your typical greatest hits. A really true memory. And every time I look at it, it's always there. And then, for my birthday, my mother took me to Philly, and we were in the indoor market where she asked me to pick any record that I wanted. Now this, it's never really been with my main record collection, although I keep it there now. This is that actual record that I picked, and I can't really play this now because it is marked like crazy. I don't think you can see anything there. I don't think nothing's being picked up. And that's the other side. There's a mark right there. That is a mark that is picked up quite easily. If I put this on the record turntable now, I don't know, it would probably sound like he's got Tourette's. You put it on, you go, well, but and it would be like that. But it's fantastic to look at, and I do have a replacement of this, so I can play it if I wanted to. But this particular one, this is very precious to me. Very precious. Well, they're all very precious, what I'm about to show you. So, yes, I'm trying to do this in order. The next thing I'd like to show you is, as I spoke about when I first became an ETA, the first thing that I did was the Best Welsh Elvis competition in Porthcawl. And this picture here is from that night. That's the guitar that I bought. As you can see, you can just about see the bottom, the black Aloha belt that I bought, which is right by here. You can see the silver chains. Now check out that background, that shadow, and the fact that you've got Elvis right here. It's a pretty cool shot. So that's from that moment. And then over the years, as I said about my jumpsuits, and something I've always loved is the Elvis TCB necklace. Now the one I have on, there's a different story there that altogether. What I'm about to show you, however, is very precious to me because, as I said, I've always loved Elvis's TCB necklace, and I'd always wanted my own original one. And after I sold my very first jumpsuit, which was the Black Matador, I remember the night that it got sold, I remember being chilled out on the sofa with my wife, and when she told me that it sold on eBay, I said, I'd love to get the TCB necklace. And right there and then, she got me a real TCB necklace, and this is 9 karat gold. It comes in a lovely box, as you can see. Now, I only wear this on special occasions. I keep this very close. And one of those special occasions I'm about to show you. When I was a kid, I'd always dreamed of meeting Elvis Presley and a few other people over time. Obviously, I couldn't meet Elvis, so I met the closest to meeting Elvis. Thank you to my loving wife, Kelly. For my birthday, she bought me tickets to go and see the Elvis on screen with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, and she got me the VIP package to where I was able to meet Priscilla Presley, Elvis's ex-wife, or former wife, a bit more respectful that way. And now this is a canvas that would, when I had the pictures back, my wife had this done for me as a Christmas present. So she bought me the tickets for my birthday, and for Christmas she had this done for me. So, and she was a lovely, lovely, lovely lady. Gave everybody the time of day. And that necklace, I'm wearing the TCB necklace. I don't know how well it's going to come up, but I'm wearing the TCB necklace on this picture. Now, I'll never forget this moment. This was a very magical moment for me. In many ways. Not only did I spend some time with her, I asked her quite a few questions. A few of them she'd never been asked before, and she was quite overwhelmed with me asking them, and I mean that in a good way. We had a really nice time, chatting, and she never pushed anybody away quickly. She gave everybody the time that was there, and so that's a moment I'll never forget. I actually had a gift made for her, and I took it to her and presented her with a gift. So that was a really lovely moment for me. Now, I'm not really one for autographs. I always think that the picture is more physical and more lasting. When I was there, one of the questions she asked me is, what did I think of the show and did I enjoy it? Well, I told her what I thought, and then I said that it was the best birthday present I ever had. And this was the tour program that was on sale at the venue. She was writing in the book at the time. I couldn't quite see what she was writing. I just thought she was writing my name to me and her name. Now, obviously my stage name is CJ, but obviously I told her what my full name was. It wasn't until after the meeting I'd gone round and I'd opened the book just to see what she'd wrote. As I said, I told her it was the best birthday present that I'd ever had. So she wrote to Clinton, that's me, happy birthday, and was it best wishes? Best. All the best. Thank you, Kelly. All the best. And then her name then, Priscilla Presley. So, I know that obviously her family members and friends, whatever, will probably get a birthday card off her. But how many fans can turn around and say that they've had a personal birthday message from Priscilla Presley? I'm sure there won't be many. And I'm one of the lucky ones. And to me, I will always treasure that. As I said, I'm not one for autographs at all. But to me, that's a little priceless. So, and that's it. I've got nothing to show you. Okay, I do. I got one more thing I'd like to show you. Now, me with recording, as an ETA, I mean, I did recording as a hobby. And sorry, I'm taking something out of here. I did recording as a hobby, and obviously I've done a few CDs that I have, that fans to buy and so forth. And I also love, vinyl records. Well, this was Christmas, right? Christmas or my birthday?
Birthday.
For my birthday, a couple of years ago, my wife presented me with a square. And obviously I'm talking about now, I think it's obvious, she got me a record. And it wasn't just any record. White label. No, sorry. She asked me for a few of my recordings and a few pictures before my birthday, and to me I thought maybe I didn't know what she was doing. I certainly did not expect this. My very own picture disc containing 5 tracks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. I'm trying to remember what they are. It's been a while since I played it, but I'd put some recordings that I thought at the time were my best ones, and they pretty were. I mean, I know the first one's Baby Let's Play House. Another one of them is Love Me Tender. Another one is Traveling Light. And I can't remember what the other 2 are. But that's my very own picture disc. That's wrong, and I can't remember what the other 2 are. That's really wrong. But I was so overwhelmed when I received it, and when I played, and that picture there of me is from the Porthcawl Elvis Festival. And again, it's something I treasure. I don't know what gram it is. I'm guessing 180. I'm guessing it's quite thick. It is quite thick, and you can tell from, if I bring a little bit closer there, you can see how thick it is. Obviously, that's the other side. It's just blank. But it's quite unique, and it's quite different as well. The thing is, see, with my wife, this is one of the reasons why I call her pain sometimes, and I mean it in a very good way. Trust me, I love her to bits. The reason why I call her pain, she always ends up surprising me with the most unique stuff that you can think of. I'll put that away in a second. But she really has a way of surprising me. So there's some of the highlights on some of my items, like some of my special items that I've wanted to show you. I hope this video of showing you a little understanding of why Elvis is a very important part of my life, and why I love Elvis as a fan and also as a tribute artist, as I hope it shows just how much his music means to me in my life, and why my tribute is a personal one, because it's my way of saying thank you to him for everything he's done for and in my life. I'd like to thank every one of you for watching, and I would just like to give this last thank you to someone who's been my rock, not just throughout my difficult times, but for believing in me, encouraging me, supporting me, including with giving me some ideas along the way about my tribute, and even finding things with my Elvis collection that I struggle to find. That's my wife. That's my wife, Kelly Horton. I couldn't be any more proud of her than what I am. I can't express how much I love her. I can't express what I would do without her. There's not a lot of people who would put up with somebody like me. Because I can sometimes be a difficult guy to be with. But she's not even a big Elvis fan. But she takes me to and from my gigs. She likes Elvis, don't get me wrong. She does like him, and she does have a couple of favourite songs, but She's not like me with collecting everything, but she supports me in everything that I do. I mean, she's bought me quite a lot of the stuff that I have. She's helped me replace some of the things that I had that was once destroyed. That's another story which I won't go into. But I truly couldn't do it without her. And last but not least, I'd like to thank all of you for watching and everybody who comes to see my shows, because without you, without my wife, there'll be no me. So I guess that pretty much wraps this up. If you've watched until now, once again, I thank you so much for the support that you've all shown me over the years and the ongoing support that you still show. Look after yourselves and keep well. See you soon.